felt a little pitchy. Felt a little off there.
Not bad.
That's fine. I'm not going to go for it again. What's up, everybody? It's WrestleZone wrap-up on a Wednesday, nearing the end of the year. Are we doing a best of? Not just yet. No, at WrestleZone, we wait for the end of the year. We wait for the entire calendar year to be done. But we are looking at some of the best of the business. You can check out that feature. It's up now at WrestleZone.com. A lot to get into today. The AEW tribute to the late, great Brodie Lee will be on television tonight. We'll talk about what's in store with that, how the wrestling world has continued to respond to that very sad, tragic story. How is WWE NXT wrapping up their 2020, which has obviously been challenging for the whole world. Plus, we'll talk about Raw ratings. They're up. That's right. You jaded wrestling fans, Raw ratings are up. Whether you like it or not, they are up. And we'll talk about the big title match that's being set up for Legends Night coming up here on January 4th. A lot to get into. I'm not alone. Dominic D'Angelo, you can see him on our podcast that we have in the feed, all in one feed, by the way. You don't have to subscribe to different feeds. Two Dynamite Dudes with Attitudes, our AEW focused show. Dom, I know you guys obviously had a difficult episode that we have up now if people want to check it out.
Yeah, we did. So Marcus and I recorded the episode Saturday night. And as that happened, once we finished, I had all our Facebook message correspondence in there. And that's when I learned the news of Brodie passing. And so we waited a day and then we recorded the intro for it the next day. So and then we kind of reflected. It gave us time to kind of look at some of the tweets that in the that his colleagues shared and everything like that. Just a tough episode, real tough episode. And it's been a real tough week. And I can't even imagine what it's like for the roster and then obviously his family. It's just very, very tough. And it
goes across the board. This isn't obviously the roster at AEW, but he had plenty of friends in WWE where most people got to see him for the first time. A majority of wrestling fans, obviously people well beyond any of those promotions, people he came up with. And he's a very, very special figure. I don't want to say underrated, but he was definitely like a guy where you could see like he would be a lifer in wrestling and would have a role in training people. And you really only get that if you're a specific type of person. You don't have to be a main eventer to be a lifer in wrestling. And I've heard this from people that are quote unquote lifers that have those positions in the companies that have worked with those people. You have to be a certain type of person. And you have to have that balance they want. And I really think a lot of people saw it in him. Very, very sad week here. Let's jump right into it.
Balance better, too, than Brodie Lee. Just like being able to balance family, balance his love of wrestling, and blend those together and make it like a magical thing for him and his family and his friends, too. And it's, it really speaks to his ability to that he would have carried on, no doubt about it, in wrestling from, the ground on up moving forward.
Continue to share your thoughts, your memories, your favorite matches, and things that you enjoyed from Brodie or Luke Harper, as you may know him, in his career in wrestling. Go ahead and share those with us in the comments below. And thank you once again for just keeping a proper dialogue with those things. I sometimes have to tell people that, but it is important to think of that. I think it's really easy for people to jump in the negative pool when we really don't have to be there. That's just making hollow noise. Let's get into the positive that is going on today. AEW will present their tribute show. This was going to be part of their Holiday Bash series. Basically, hey, we know we're going up against NBA basketball is back. We're going to be in the mix with that. We have nearing the end of the football season. So challenging times for wrestling. You're seeing Raw doing something with Legends Night next week when it's going to be their first night unopposed. So coming out of that, they want to be ready with something special. This past week, you saw AEW have to do something different with a show delayed because of an NBA game. So that's what the whole Holiday Bash series was supposed to be. Then you have this awful tragedy with Brodie passing away. Now, tonight's show, when you guys get this, most of you may have already heard it. It's going to be a really, really stacked show. They're going to have an entire match just with Brodie Lee Jr., Brodie's son. His favorite wrestlers are going to be featured in the match. So to really put this all together in a short period of time, pretty challenging.
Very challenging. And Tony Khan spoke to it about staying up all night to book the card in honor of not only Brodie, but his son Brodie Jr. and stuff. And to kind of factor all that in.
Mhm.
And like he talked on the phone with Dave Meltzer, and then after that reassessed his card that he had and did it all over. And by the time he finished up on the phone with Meltzer, it was like 3:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, and then he did it again. So a lot of thought has been put into this card that we're going to see tonight. It's going to be an experience. So it's going to be a hard experience, I feel, but like obviously like hopefully cathartic and just overall celebration for Brodie Lee's life.
Absolutely. It'll be stacked. A lot of his favorite wrestlers feature many, many different tag matches. So that is definitely a note to get as many people on the show as possible that have some connection to him. Cody Orange Cassidy and Preston Vance will take on Team Taz in the main event. Colt Cabana and the Young Bucks will take on Matt Hardy and Private Party. Hangman Page and Alex Reynolds, along with John Silver, will take on MJFs and Santana Ortiz. Anna Jay and Ty Conti will take on Dr. Britt Baker and Penelope Ford. Lance Archer, Stu Grayson, and Evil Uno of the Dark Order will take on Eddie Kingston, Butcher, and the Blade. So that'll be tonight's show. Obviously, we will get some promos, maybe even some storyline stuff developing to the different things they have going on at AEW Dynamite. But the focus will be on paying tribute to Luke Harper, Brodie Lee, John Huber, as he's known to people outside of wrestling. So it'll definitely be an interesting night, and we'll continue to follow the story as it develops here. People chiming in here. Ghost Rider Taylor saying he was great in Wyatt family. Absolutely. Loved him in the Wyatt family. I think the Wyatt family would obviously, I think Bray Wyatt would have been a superstar without the Wyatt family to some degree. But him and that group were a special thing in the mid 2010s, weren't they?
I think a very special part of the Wyatt family too was that, what's going to be next for somebody like a Luke Harper? Like, I can't wait to see him kind of break out more. I think that was a big engaging part of the Wyatt family too, having him as like second in command in kind of a way, and seeing where that might have ended up for him, like what fans were looking for.
Absolutely. Continue to share your memories of him and different things you enjoyed from his career, because you got to remember this stuff. This stuff is special, and bringing it up is okay. That's fun. It's always fun to talk about your favorite matches. I could talk about everything I've enjoyed at the Rosemont Horizon until I can't speak anymore. So there's nothing wrong with sharing that. Over on WWE NXT, obviously this will be a difficult night for them to be on air. And they have a show next week. They have New Year's Evil, which is basically like a takeover on TV. That is something they will do to stay competitive on Wednesday nights. You will see AEW go head-to-head once again with them tonight. They return back to the regular time slot after being delayed last week. Plus, they're going to have the tribute show. A lot of focus is going to be on the AEW tribute show. But I think it's worth noting NXT has a very, very strong card here together. And they are definitely rallying their horses with some very special stuff here on their show. I was very surprised they went full-fledged with a real card here. I thought we were going to have more of a year-end award show. But this is year-end awards are going to be segments between matches, because you have a pretty solid card here. Bronson Reed versus Isaiah Swerve Scott. The Grizzled Young Veterans versus Breezango. Mercedes Martinez, who returned last week and really set herself up for a women's title run against Io Shirai, the current title holder, who whipped her through the table, through the side of a table. I've never seen someone do that before, like the announcer's table, not the top. It's kind of unique. We'll have the year-end awards. Roderick Strong versus Pete Dunne. Someone's going to get hit in the face really hard in that one, Don, huh?
Maybe both of them.
maybe both of them. Pete Dunne's been on a real roll. When he has TV matches, it's very hard to change the channel on that. Leon Ruff challenging NXT North American champion Johnny Gargano. Of course, we had the Gargano Christmas last week as well. Leon Ruff took that title from Gargano, but lost it to him at the most recent takeover in a triple threat. And then we have all the build to NXT New Year's Evil next week. So plenty for NXT there. Where do you see NXT going into 2021? I see a lot of people constantly want to make the comparison to AEW because that's what they're head-to-head with. I get it, but that's completely outside company. But I think if you're a WWE fan, you can look at them as the most consistently entertaining brand. Really, really special stuff. Some of the best matches of the year for WWE overall came from NXT. People want to get mad at WWE, but I mean, NXT is a shining star for them. And I don't think there's any one specific person in it that stands out. It's really the show as a whole is very, very special. And if you just want straight up kick-ass wrestling and some fun storylines, you get it there every week.
You get, that it's very much for the WWE brand. It's the alternative brand for WWE. So it's like, I think a big point, what you just said too, is like, you know, kind of with NXT when it really was catching a lot of heat, like positive heat, was like having big, like these stars. Wow, these guys are here. Like you have a Sami Zayn, you have a Kevin Owens, you have a Finn Balor, you have a Samoa Joe, Drew McIntyre. Goes on and on. Now it's like you do have these potential for stars developing more so, like a Karrion Kross and things like that. But right now it is that it's in that zone where it's like consistently good, like especially takeover shows remain really, really good during this pandemic. And I think that's a thing to hang their hat on. And when these special events like this New Year's Evil coming up, and then you had Takeover in your house, or the In Your House special and all that stuff, I think it makes these things significant, and it goes to the point of NXT kind of just keeping steady and, like, you know, remaining steady and focused on their game plan and on their own work, you know.
And they are competitive. As much as people want to say this thing is blown out, oh, it was done. They got to their million. The shift in balance we heard about a month ago with AEW, and then you had these weeks where it's like they're right there with him again. You know, like you were within 100,000, within 70,000. AEW is going to have the lead. They're the fresh new product. They look alternative. They're on a different, very accessible channel in TNT, and Warner Media backing them up. I don't see that changing. But the fact is, writing off NXT, I think is the worst thing any week-to-week wrestling fan can do. Because what you're saying is, I want to write it off just so I can write it off. You know what I mean? With so much wrestling, I want to be able to say, I don't have to care about it, right? I don't have to follow it. I've chosen a side. Bad idea. Because people did that in the 90s, and they went with Nitro. And eventually, those people changed. Here's the thing to remember with this tribalism and everything with it, guys. You don't have to pick a side. You don't have to. They have to make you care. They have to make you don't. I'm with AEW. I'm with and no. You don't have to be pro any company. You have to be pro wrestling. Good guys, bad guys, storylines. Who's on that show do I care about? What guys and gals on the show are doing stuff that I care about? What storylines are they telling me that I want to see? Is that match cool? I'm gonna watch that match. Good match, great match, doesn't matter. You can do all the sizzle on the steak, but that doesn't work all the time. You and I know that, right? Sometimes the steak has got to be there, and NXT has it. They have some of the best wrestlers in the world. Finn Balor is one of the best wrestlers in the world. Adam Cole is great. And then they did some really crazy stuff this year with Pat McAfee, who, for lack of a better phrase, has no business being as good as he was in the ring, and went out there and gave them something really special. Maybe the best celebrity involvement in wrestling this year was probably him.
I would think, like, by a landslide.
Yeah. So I mean, they have curveballs, and I think they're going to throw them. So in terms of things that they can do that are big, I weirdly see NXT in a position to be the first WWE brand to really do something in front of a live audience. And I'm not saying that Raw or SmackDown couldn't do that, but I'm saying in the sense, because they're already doing it. They're the only WWE show weekly now that has a live audience. They have live fans. They're doing the virtual Thunderdome thing on Raw and SmackDown, spending a lot of money on it, so use it that way, right? But you look at what they're doing at the Capitol Wrestling Center. That looks like a test mode for whatever WWE can do in that transitional period of getting live fans back into shows. All right, we have a level of vaccination. We have a level of some immunity. This isn't going to be like a green light go and people are filling arenas again, guys. Like, obviously, we already know that now. There will be this slow, gradual return through regions back to it. And NXT, what they have at the Capitol Wrestling Center, the logistics of contact tracing, all those different things. Also, just they have a network of people that they already know. That you and I have heard about this. We've talked to people in Florida, people in Orlando. WWE invites those people. Those aren't ticketed events, you know? So WWE has an ability to do that. Now let's scale it out. All right, we have 200-300 people. Now we can do it at this level. NXT, I think, is the breeding ground for testing logistical things that WWE will do at much larger scale across the board in a very, very challenging year. 2020, very hard. 2021 is going to be hard to get us back on track. And I think NXT is going to be a big part of that for WWE overall.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important to kind of make that product super special and significant. And, because I think NXT, when it started off, as the Wednesday night, and not that it was positioned to be that way because it was already planned, but like as the Wednesday night competitor to Dynamite, I think the expectations are pretty high. And like, kind of like, I know from a perspective of like, wow, this is really going to rock, level out the competition here. And, it ended up like AEW ended up coming ahead of the game. And so I feel for them to make this brand further continue is kind of just what they're doing is staying the course. And, I think it is important, though. It is important to build those stars and continue to build those stars and make them seem, almost unattainable in a way. So I think that's important to kind of find that balance on NXT. And, it's a good show, and they do when almost to the point like that Dynamite is, I feel, where like that kind of feels like event tune in television. Those takeovers feels like wrestling event tune in television.
And this New Year's Evil show is looking like that. You're gonna get Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor again. And that match, they did a takeover with that a few months ago, and it was great. And they literally injured each other. If you're one of those people like, I have to see real violence in the ring, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it this week. You're gonna get it next week. And maybe that's more of what USA Network's been saying we want from Raw. We want more gritty, real stuff. Bring it back to basics. I think you're gonna get that with some level of degree here with NXT over the next 2 weeks. Tonight with Roderick Strong and Pete Dunne. Next week with this match with Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor. I do expect them to do some clever picture-in-picture things next week, especially with New Year's Evil being a bigger show. And at some point, we're getting Balor versus Karrion Kross, which is a match that match is on the lip of many, many fans. If that doesn't get teased in the next few weeks, if we don't see that around Royal Rumble time, if they're going to do a takeover that weekend, they haven't alluded to anything. With the network, they could do it anytime they want, which I actually kind of think is cool because they can kind of plug those in where it fits.
Yeah.
But that match will happen. And I think there'll be a big match for NXT that people will want to click over for. Like if I'm watching AEW and I hear we're going to have someone Cross and Balor, that's something, that's got some meat on it. I want to bite into it. Let's jump into some other TV news. WWE Raw, it is in the beating child of specifically internet wrestling fans, right? Don't we love that term? Internet wrestling fans. They've really loved to talk about the ratings are so low, historic low ratings, but now the ratings are up. There's been a very good trend for WWE ratings in the past week. SmackDown had the most watched pro wrestling show on television in 2020. Now, obviously, the next day we had the sad story with Brodie Lee, and it kind of overshadowed it. It's going to happen, right? But I don't want it to be taken from SmackDown. SmackDown now is the top televised weekly pro wrestling show across the board. No matter what it is, WWE, Ring of Honor, AEW, they scored. They had nearly 4.1 million people watch a segment of their show. Now, mind you, it got down to 2.5, but still, that's higher than anything else by a wide margin. Yeah. So, I mean, they did a 3.3 overall rating. Now, Raw obviously is in a tough spot. They've had Monday Night Football. They've had some missed calls with different creative things, maybe some things long in the tooth, maybe some fans on a 3-hour show. They want an old, tight, crazy, crash TV Monday Night Raw like they had back in the day. But we're not back in the day. You can't do that type of show. So you're in a tough spot, both sides. Raw maybe rebounding. Past 2 weeks, the ratings are up. This week, numbers, not too bad. They got near 1.9 million in 1 hour of the show, settling around a 1.7 as their average overall viewership for Monday night. What do you think of Raw and the numbers bouncing back here the past 2 weeks?
I mean, I think it's like, part of it has to be like I would imagine maybe what they delivered on SmackDown kind of gave some incentive to watch Raw. Raw has earned a reputation and not a good one for the most part. I think a lot of their creative decisions, sure, they're in a tough spot, but what is necessarily different than these past any time football season's going on? I mean, they're always going to have.
And it is cyclical. There is some cycle to this where this is
it's like
year, where we're waiting for the big stuff to happen and we're just in the
it does get to that point, especially like there's that downtime before Royal Rumble, and then there it kind of. I mean, so. There has been that that's you're right to that point.
Mhm.
I also feel, but I mean, also saying to it that they're from a creative aspect, it's been kind of unprecedented in how kind of uncreative it's been in a lot of ways, and I think
But now it's going another way. You know what I mean? Now you can see it. And the interesting thing was how much the ratings stayed fairly strong. You lose 250,000 of people over 3 hours. That's not as bad. Now you lose 250,000 of people over maybe 45 minutes. That's a different story. That's a different trend. So they had nearly 1.9 in the first hour. They had nearly 1.7 near the end of the show. That's not too bad of a number.
It's not bad. It's like, yeah, because what was it like? Can you remember what it was the past week, Kev? Offhand,
the lowest number was around 1.5, like settling right over 1.5.
Yeah.
So you had at one point nearly 500,000 more people watch this show, more than 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they're still doing with Monday Night Football. You know, so we're still nearing.
It was a blowout though.
Yeah, so you had a blowout game though too, and that happens. You know, like a couple weeks ago, they had like that week they had the really awful rating. There was a crazy upset game that people tuned in for.
Yeah, I think it was Philly and
so
somebody.
That's television, guys. You know, but then you look at SmackDown on Friday, they beat NBA. You know, they were beating the NBA, which is crazy to think about too.
I think what it lended to that was NFL was on right before that.
They had a great lead in. So, I mean, it's how do you play things? You know, like there's probably many people watching AEW for the first time because NBA was leading into them on TV.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of different challenges when you're doing that stuff. Like what you are leading to something else, something lead into you. We're talking media game here. But Raw, good stuff on the show this week. Keith Lee and Sheamus, I thought was a fun storyline built from the week before. Both friends, friendly fire, you know, that's going to break down. So friends become enemies. I think Sheamus is a complicated character, can actually pull that off. When that happens, I don't know. We know he's not friends with Keith. Keith is only friends with Drew. You know, it's like you have those two different friends and in two different camps. That's what they're playing off of here. And the match was exciting. It had some real chemistry to it. You know, but hey, wasn't Keith Lee buried? Wasn't he buried though, Dom? Wasn't because I don't know. It seems like everyone on wrestling Twitter was telling me that he was buried. That that Vince McMahon wanted to bring him up from NXT just to bury him. Right? That's the only reason he was brought up.
Okay,
and all this money was. But then but now he beat Sheamus, former champion, right? He beat him and was featured in a main event, and then opened the show this week, which you know is a good position to be in. Anytime you open a show, it's a very good position. And now next week on this other show. Basically, the season premiere Raw, right?
Well, so
challenging for the world title. Seems like he's not buried anymore.
I think people do tend to toss around the word buried a little too much.
It's the most abused word in wrestling.
It's very abused. Yeah. But I do believe like he's been very underutilized and like not built up properly. I think that's a fair.
He's in a world title match next week.
To now, but Kev, I mean, you cannot argue that
everyone can't be super hot all the time, especially when the rosters.
But there's a way to keep somebody hot, and there's a way to keep somebody at a peak interest or a certain level of interest where, like, I want to see this guy further develop and further develop. I think how they played him these past few months. I don't think you can argue that it hasn't been handled in the best manner for Keith Lee. Like it's good to see him in the title match now, but I mean, like there was definitely better ways
to see him in the title match, or is it bittersweet because, well, I already said he was buried, so now I can't say he's buried. I already wrote him off because I'm conditioned to write off things, right? Because things get written off. My thing is the roster is so deep, you can't logically. What are you doing, Dusty? Is the cat Dusty?
He's eating my Christmas tree.
Tell him I got a hot take here. All right. Tell your cat I got a hot wrestling take here. But no, I'm when people freak out about this stuff, I'm like, just calm down. We get Drew versus Keith Lee.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think this title stays on Drew rather. Through WrestleMania season. It'll be a momentous episode of Monday Night Raw. This will be the Legends Night. Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair going to be on the show. A couple other appearances. I don't know if they've announced any of their big matches. I don't have those in my notes right now, but you're getting a WWE Championship match on television. They did this about 6 weeks ago in November, and it was a good match. Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre on TV. I admire WWE for saying, let's put these title matches on TV when we have so much content you put out every week. It's okay. I'm okay with it. What do you think of this match? Will it be an attraction? Will it be something that fans, you think, are going to be like, hey, you got me with Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. I'm a casual fan, but I'm going to stay around and see what the Big Scott and Big Keith Lee can do in this big match.
I think, yeah. I mean, obviously having those legends there is the big ticket for them. Like to start off the fresh, no football competition. You have recognizable household names on that program, so that is your lead in. Now, the execution and how you portray these two stars is what's going to be very important to keep that latch onto those fans so they tune in next week, the week after, because you're not going to have those legends on the week after. It's just going to be, and I think what's also important is making those legends valuable to the television product itself, like that show. You instead of incorporating them as like, hey, here they are, look, here's Ric Flair, here's Hulk Hogan. You have to incorporate them into your program and into some of the storytelling aspect of it.
They did that this summer when they had all those different legends play into the angle with Drew and Randy Orton.
But that can be. I wasn't very happy with that one either, because it's like you foiled them all by having Randy Orton beat them all up. I did not like the execution.
They play into who's active and could be in the match and who's going to be a part of the payoff. So I don't mind that. And then Drew kicked his ass for doing it.
I take exception to a lot of how WWE handles their legends. Yeah. I feel it's not the best way to do it at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like if you incorporate these guys into that storyline and make them, because if you downplay these legends, the fans are going to be like, well, I didn't want to see that happen to Ric Flair. I didn't want to see that happen to Hulk Hogan. And like you could be like, oh, well, that's more of a reason to hate Randy Orton or to hate this person. But I think it's more important to be like, oh, that's cool that guy's helping that guy out, or that they're working together. I think people want to see more of that than they want to see what we typically get when we see a legend, or them play a goofball, or them play the foil or the fool, or the victim. So I think it's really what's going to be really important on this Monday is balancing those story, putting them into the story and making them a valuable piece to the story. Because what I keep going back to is that moment, I think, when Roddy Piper was doing Piper's Pit with John Cena, and it was just boom, just you had the top star and Roddy leveling with like John Cena. That's just a stick out moment for me. And I'm like, wow, what an awesome, cool moment. Or you look at Jake Roberts at the end of one of the Raws where he invaded the Shield.
Are we going to have Hulk Hogan in the locker room with Drew McIntyre saying, can you hold that title like I did? Can you do what I did? Are you going to have Ric Flair? Are you going to have Ric Flair, saying, Randy Orton, you're still a son of a bitch. You're
just
out
getting,
there.
Just getting them in the mix.
Those little things, I don't mind that. I don't mind. You're going to see the goofy stuff. We have people asking. They ran promos on Raw and SmackDown about who was going to be on these shows, and there were some things that kind of caught people's attention. Tori Wilson will be on the show. Alicia Fox is expected to be on this, and Carlito. This will be the first time Carlito's done anything with WWE in like I think over 10 years.
It's been a while.
Yeah, so it's been a while. So I mean, if you're a fan of WWE your whole life and you're just casual, and this is the time of year in a week or two, you and I are going to have friends of ours that they're done with fantasy football. What do I watch until baseball gets going? I'll watch wrestling, and they come in and they're very cash, and maybe they just watch SmackDown, or they watch the most popular show, or just it has the favorites on it, or they just follow it on YouTube. But they're going to ask you who's going to win the Royal Rumble, right? And that's going to happen. And this is the time of year where casual fans come back. So this is the time of year to do a show like this. As much as I saw people get mad about, they're doing Legends, they're just going back to Legends. It was like, they can do this every year. They can do this every year. It's fine. Because guess what? What happens on our shows every week? This is going to happen to AEW.
Also, they do it every time there's a really, really low rating. They're like, okay, let's bring the Legends in.
Sure. Why not? It's peaks and valleys. I mean, like, if Dynamite had the same thing,
they dig themselves that hole. They dig themselves that hole. And then the way they get out of it is bringing old faces back instead of, why don't you stay consistent with the storytelling of your newer stars and making them to that level? Why don't you put more of a focus on that instead of like, okay, well, ratings are down. We got to bring Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and let's get all of these guys.
So we're not doing that with Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee in a world title match on TV?
They're making the opportunity of doing it. But I don't think they got to that point where they had to, like, if you just had Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre on for New Year's, I don't think this Raw it'd probably be on the same base level as what we've been getting with Raw.
Okay, so they should focus on that match, right? But they shouldn't have the Legends on that match, because the Legends will be the draw. So the logic of use legends to draw casual fans to watch the show, give them this great match with current front-facing new superstars. Bad idea?
No, it's a good idea. I'm not arguing that.
So what's the problem?
I'm just telling you, like they do when the ratings get low, they bring the legends in. It's been a like to your point, It's been a cyclical thing where I don't.
But there's fans that want legends around this time of year when WrestleMania happens. They look at wrestling overall. This isn't a play for hardcore fans. This is a play for casual people to watch the show again.
It is to get the ratings back up.
And this is casual wrestling season. And the logic of it makes sense. The timing of it makes complete sense. You know? And
I don't think though, if the ratings were super duper that low, I don't think they would feature a Legends Night at the turn of the year.
If the show is doing 2.5s, 2.6, they would still do this.
I don't think so. I don't think it would be. I don't think that would be the big theme. I don't think, because you know what? They wouldn't have to worry about it.
Or they would spread it out. They do it over a couple weeks. You know, we're gonna have Legends month. You know, this week's gonna be Hulk Hogan. Next week we're gonna have this guy. Next week we're gonna have that guy. You know, so it'd be different. So different takes about that. Obviously, we're debating here. I do think Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre will have a banger if they get the time.
Oh, it'll be a good match. Yeah, absolutely.
I do think that'll be a great match. I mean, we've heard the rumblings, and you and I were on a show a couple weeks ago, and we got those initial. Here's the on paper idea of what's going on with WrestleMania. That was from WrestleVotes, and the WWE Championship match involved Drew McIntyre, Keith Lee, and Brock Lesnar. Now this match is Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre. Are we eating taste of WrestleMania on Monday night?
It could be just like I don't want to say a swerve or anything like that. I think it might be an indicator that
WWE really wanted to freak people out. Keith Lee, I'm not saying it's going to happen. Okay.
Okay, let me hear you.
Keith Lee winning this title would
freak people out,
and there would be some people saying, "Damn, I got to watch Monday Night Raw." If they saw a world title change on TV, because you got one with Drew, right? And the one with Drew did a decent number, right? But you got, I mean, my thing is like, I wonder if it wasn't a Legends Night and they just said like they're gonna have a world title match. And there's going to be no commercial interruption, and it's going to get the full prime time. You better be with us in the final hour of the show. You're seeing a world title match. We're going the time. They're coming out to the ring at 9:00 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
They have to deliver on that. But there is that thing where they do world title matches on TV, and it's just a swervy angle to set up something. Which is fine. I have no problem with that. You know what I mean? Especially when you're paying for the network and stuff like that. Like, yeah, sure, you're going to pay it off at the pay-per-view. Yeah, the Royal Rumble in a couple weeks, one of the biggest shows of the year. Maybe this is just what happens, right? Sheamus gets involved. There's shenanigans or something like that. Keith Lee wins the title, holds it until Royal Rumble, then people get pissed. You know, like you only give him the title just to take it off.
You only gave that short amount of time.
Being a transitional champion still means you're a champion. like that still happens. So it would be crazy if Keith Lee won this title, wouldn't it?
It would be crazy. And I tell you what, I mean, like if they have a good story for it, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing either. But I just, you know, I think it's more of a question of like, yeah. And I mean, this could obviously be a SmackDown thing too, but who is going to win the Royal Rumble? I think they have to keep that in mind.
You got me to one of my segments. I usually end the January episodes of the podcast off with this, but I don't say it. It's like we're in January. It is WrestleMania season, right? So I did this yesterday.
On the road.
My answer will change, just like Bobby Heenan on commentary back in '92, where he just changes his pick for who wins the Royal Rumble. It's a day in January. The Royal Rumble is literally the last day of the month. Who wins the Royal Rumble? Today, if you're looking at it, who wins the Royal Rumble? We have two confirmed competitors for the men and the women's. For the women, it's Nia and Shayna Baszler confirmed to be in it. For the men, it's Daniel Bryan and Bobby Lashley. Odds-on favorites in terms of betting right now, Big E for the men, Bianca Belair for the women. Those odds could change. Also in the top 5 for those odds, they also include Edge, Goldberg, and returns. For the women, there's talk of maybe Charlotte Flair being in one of those winning spots. This would be her winning it 2 years in a row. I'm less inclined to go in that direction. Who wins the Royal Rumble if it happened today?
If it happened today, I'm saying Daniel Bryan. Happened today.
You know what? I got to check up on Talking Smack, the weekend post show for SmackDown, and they're doing some interesting things on those shows. Those post shows are interesting shows where people get a little bit more off the script and they get to kind of go. They have their story they have to get over, but they get a little bit more because they have more time. They have more time. They don't have like they're as crunchy on time. And they had Daniel Bryan cutting his promo almost passive aggressively at Paul Heyman. And it was very well worded, the way he put this together. He goes, I'm not going to say I'm a better father or a better person, but I'm a better wrestler. I'm a better fighter. And he goes, and he's alluded to it. I only have a little bit more time left doing this. And he's kind of more honest about it. It's in the years that he's been back from dealing with a series of bad concussions and being forced to retire and now come back. He said he's been very public. I'm going to be a part-time wrestler. I'm going to be a full-time dad. And also, people can attribute some of the creative focus of WWE to Daniel Bryan this year. Bruce Pritchard at the top, Vince McMahon right there. Part of that consulting team for SmackDown has been Daniel Bryan. And so you can say, maybe, is he booking himself into the top angle? No, he's not. I've heard some people say that. Don't go in that direction. Daniel Bryan is, even with that considered, Daniel Bryan is in a good position. This could be his last big run at a world title right now.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a really good one. If you factor in everything too, like this would be a really, really good match for WrestleMania because of the past, not only the story aspect of the Royal Rumbles that we've had over the years, but the fan reaction to the Royal Rumbles over the years, where people's like they're just hungry for Daniel Bryan to win that thing. And who would they get? They would get Roman Reigns. They would get Roman Reigns here. They get in there, and so he would be a factor. And so I think aside from obviously a Rock versus Roman Reigns,
we're getting to that already. We already have a comment about it, but go ahead, finish up your thought.
But aside from that happening, I think this would be a very beautiful story that they could build very well up until WrestleMania and make it feel very high stakes.
They haven't really. I mean, Daniel Bryan is just a guy like Styles is right there where you can, with a couple of promos and one match, get him right back in the mix, and fans are on board, and they're right back at WrestleMania 30 back in New Orleans, and they're going, yes. I think Daniel Bryan is a guy you can do that with. He has that deep emotional connection with longtime fans, casual fans. He's the rare cross-aisle wrestler where the guys love him, the kids love him, and the women love him because the kids and the guys love him, and they're just on board. All right? Daniel Bryan can do that. He can cut those bruised white meat baby face promos that you need, and Roman Reigns is on a different level, as a heel now, with his level of callousness and hubris and all those different things. I think if you can't get The Rock, we have Nassim texting in here saying, I think The Rock will win the Rumble. If The Rock isn't on board, have The Rock for a while, that match is there. That match with Roman Reigns and The Rock, hopefully you get to do it at some point. Rock is getting older. He said if he only has one more match, that's the match he wants to have. I don't know if you're going to have it if there's no fans there. I'm just saying what's out there, guys.
Very good point, too.
The working man is Daniel Bryan, and the man who can work you one hell of a match and maybe even take the title off Roman Reigns and have a feel-good run with it into the summer. It's Daniel Bryan. And I also think 5-6 years ago, that would be unreasonable to think that a guy like him could do that. But he already broke the mold already. He broke the mold, him and CM Punk and other people, of the big guy has to be the champion. The big, like a certain type of physical person has to do that. Roman Reigns carries that role. I mean, the guy's near 275, 6'2", 6'3", football guy, all those different things. Daniel Bryan broke that mold and also has had great matches with Roman Reigns, and Roman is I think a profound pro right now. He's creatively playing on a whole different level, getting so much out of everything he does. And I think Daniel Bryan can play on that artistic level as well.
And let's not forget too, like what you said about Talking Smack, you have Paul Heyman in the mix. And so you got to think, everyone said, Paul Heyman's not running creative anymore. They gave him the boot, the creative spot. He is absolutely involved in anything that he does. He's involved in producing it, like to some degree. So calm down on that. What I mean? Paul Heyman. Also, everyone's like, he got demoted. I was like, he's
He's holding the title for the
My
top
title,
guy.
but Paul Heyman's Paul Heyman, and he knows how to work something. You know,
he's been in a top spot with WWE for like the last 7 years.
Right?
Calm down, everybody. like we got demoted. It was like, is this a demotion?
Still there.
4.1 million people watched that cage match on Friday. I didn't think it was a pretty bad demotion here. For the women, who would you see winning the Royal Rumble today?
Now that's tough. Golly, I could very much see Bayley.
It feels a lot more wide open with the women.
Yeah, I think I could really see Bayley.
Yeah, I could see Bayley being a stinker. And there is that thing with the two Royal Rumbles now. All right, well, we're going to go with the baby face in one. We go with the heel in the other, So, and that's okay. That's a level. I don't think that's parody booking. That makes sense, I mean, because then if you do the baby face chasing both titles, it's obvious to a degree. So you don't want to do that too. A lot of people leaning on Bianca Belair, but I think that's more fan suggestion, that's what I want. That's what fans want to see. But are we seeing WWE respond to that and book that on the other side of it? Also, we've seen many times where people win the Royal Rumble and they're not the guy or the gal to be featured at WrestleMania. They're going to be involved, but they're not the person, and it's more the Royal Rumble gets us going overall. So I could see it with the women too, or whoever that person is maybe isn't even in a top match at WrestleMania to a degree,
and I don't think that's not a bad route to take, because obviously I think a big thing about a Royal Rumble is what they were used for so many ways was to build new stars. So if you have
multiple storylines too, it's not so much who's the last person standing at the end of the match. They've done so much more for So there's plenty. You can
like Diesel's run in '94, and then you look at stuff plays out. So it's just like Lesnar gets eliminated or whatever. But I think there certainly isn't. If you have confidence in a star, maybe like somebody like a Rhea Ripley who's like really had from a booking perspective has had a rough 2020, like from losing matches here and there. If you wanted to elevate her again, having her win the Rumble is a good way to do it.
Absolutely. I want to make sure I'm covered on everything with our notes here. Do want to remind you, hours of content every single week in the podcast. Okay, just on a regular week without a pay-per-view, you would get 5 WrestleZone wrap-ups from me every week. Okay, 5. All right. We also have the SmackDown Double Down with Colin Tessier. All right. We have the recap of Honor now for Ring of Honor fans. Get you caught up with them. All right. They're rolling back in the mix here. All right. A couple weeks, we're going to have our Round Table Impact post-wrestling shows that we're going to have for those. Not postwrestling.com. No. Post Impact Wrestling.
Post Impact Wrestling.
Get you there. All right. And then on top of it, we have these interviews that you just pulled here. You pulled some great interviews this year. Recently, you spoke with Arn Anderson. Tell me about that.
Oh, man. It was one of my favorite moments so far of my budding career, if you will. Like, it's like, I feel...
There's no way to say that word. My budding career. Let me snifter my brandy while I sit at the gentleman's club and
out of my Pizza Hut cup.
The other WrestleZone journalists. Do you have your Pizza Hut cup? Let me see your Pizza Hut cup.
Pizza Hut.
Did you get that by reading books back in the 90s? Is that the reading program when you get like a personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut?
I remember getting all the puppets, like the rubber puppets from Pizza Hut, all that stuff.
The reading challenge. So you spoke with Arn.
Like just a genuine, obviously extremely smart in the business dude, and like just breaks it down in such a great way. We talk about Sting, we talk about him coaching Cody, we talk about the importance of factions. He does his Larry Zbyszko impersonation. It's an awesome interview. And his Larry Zbyszko impersonation is just fantastic.
If you tune in for anything.
Like just for that, because it's really good. And then just posted today is Kevin Koo from MLW, one half of Violence is Forever. What a unique individual who he is too, because just a fascinating start to that interview. He talks about like kind of not being initially wanting to necessarily sign with a wrestling promotion because he's of that like punk ideal, and the DIY attitude is like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna handle this all on my own. But like he got convinced by his buddy Dom Guarini, who's his tag team partner, and then obviously Filthy Tom Lawler. So they're all part of Team Filthy. but he got kind of cajoled into doing it and is really happy with the results and speaks some really pertinent things about MLW and how they present themselves and what their objective is when they present their wrestling product. So talk about that, talk about a little music. We talk about a lot of different stuff there too, and his time on the indie scene as well. So you get a good basis for him. Something else I've been doing too is the Meet the Wrestler episodes. There's 2 episodes up, one of Barrett Brown from Texas, and then another one of Mike Verna from New York City, who's just been wrestling. He's had a match last night on Dark, and he had a match the week before too on Dark. So really one of my another favorite interview of mine. We talked for about an hour and a half or so like that. So really got a lot of details about him too. So that was great. So yeah, that's kind of what and obviously 2 Dynamite Dudes with my brother Marcus. So we'll be recapping this really poignant episode here tonight. It's going to be very powerful, I can imagine. I'm almost a little nervous to cover it tonight because it's such a big show, I feel, and important show. So just we got a lot of great content on WrestleZone, and I always want to take an opportunity to thank all of the viewers and listeners because I really do appreciate it. It's flattering to see some of this stuff. Like we can they take their time to listen to us, and I feel it's really flattering. So I appreciate all that.
If you don't spend money with us, you spend time, and that still means a whole lot.
That's I think a little bit even more important because time is what you invest in most.
Especially now. I mean, obviously, 2020 changes your perspective, but it does. Dom, you and I have spent more time with each other on screens like this than we have in person. We've been in person. We've shared a beer or two. But I mean, this is how people socialize now to some degree. A majority of you are socializing. It is weird. It means weird disconnect. When we start going to shows again and bumping elbows, doing this, we have to do that, right? We're adapting, and the fact that we're part of that in your life, whether you are with us for the first time or hopefully you're not with us for the last time. But I mean, you spend time with us. It is, I know I say it a lot, but it means something. It really, really does mean something. Because this is where saying we're owned by a big company, but we're independent. We're allowed to go do our own things and come up with our own projects. And everything that Dom just talked about, Dom went and put that together. Dom went and put all of it together. And we had a team of people come in and work on all these different things. And we have a great team of people where ideas flow. And we try stuff. And maybe it catches on and maybe it doesn't. All right. And all these different things. But the fact that you support us, we really appreciate that. And there's a lot of great people making great wrestling content. We acknowledge that right now with the Best in the Business feature, which is up now at WrestleZone.com. That is us just kind of tipping the cat to people that are way off of our platform that we just see doing something. And we felt the need to say, hey, look at what these people are doing, especially this year. And there was a lot of people we acknowledge in terms of how they're doing things independently to keep the business going, adapting, whether it be how they cover wrestling, how they produce merchandise. A lot of great people featured in that. Impact Wrestling was featured in that. We acknowledge a lot of different things they did this year to adapt to challenges they had before the pandemic and how they've rolled with those things. There are some people in wrestling media that we felt that we do not work with, that we felt we have to say yes to. So the walls are down, and we don't mind acknowledging that you're going to spend some time with some other podcasts or maybe another YouTube channel. All right.
Heck,
but I'm looking at minute 49 here. And if you watch this much wrestling stuff with me and Dom today, thank you. Yes. Thank you. I really, really do appreciate it. I hope you're entertained. Hope we made you snicker. Hope we made you think something. Maybe you're like, shut up, Kevin. I just want to be mad. I understand. Okay. But you spent some time with us. You don't have to agree with me. If I made you smile, I made you think, and you were entertained. Dom did it too. We had a great time. That's all we're going for, right?
Did. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Dom, they want to give you a follow. Where do they go, bud?
Follow me on Twitter at Dominic D'Angelo. And follow WrestleZone on Twitter at WrestleZone.com.
I was going to do the WrestleZone.com thing. But we did it. We got to do it.
Podcast, so I was like, "Wow, I'll throw it in."
Boss Man Bill won't be mad. Did you go to Twitter? Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
I did do. If you wanted to read something, I did post Brodie Lee tribute article.
Great article, by the way. Wonderful article.
Yeah, and so take a look at that. That's on the website right now. Just talks about his fatherhood and friendship is what I titled it. So give it a read. I hope I did him justice. So there you go.
Big fan of the show. Saul Sultan is with us so much. Thank you so much. So I say Cyprus #1, #Cyprus1. If you don't know, we are trying. We as a podcast, we will not be Talk is Jericho. Okay, we will not be something else to wrestle with. All right, I'm not saying we're the Observer. I didn't say that. What I said is we want to take the small territories, and the small territory that we are currently competing for is the island nation of Cyprus in the Mediterranean Sea. We are still
one day.
charting. We're charting there, okay? We are charting on the Apple Sports chart, and we have gotten to number 2. We've gotten to number 2 overall. All right?
Kev, one day we will record live from Cyprus. It will happen. Cyprus. All right? That'll be our island.
If you are legitimately one of the people listening to our show in Cyprus, who I've never heard from, I just know we're charting there, so I don't know who's listening to the show. If you are listening to the show and you are in Cyprus, give us a 5-star review. Tell us where you are in Cyprus. Reach out to the website. I will get you on the show. We will get you on the show.
There.
You want to talk about the walls coming down? We're going to start putting some fans on the show in 2021. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Wow.
All right?
Oh.
But Cyprus, we charted there. Egypt, we charted in Egypt. Singapore, Australia. It's pretty cool stuff. So as some guys in my little dumb shit apartment in the north side of Chicago.
In my office.
Oh, excuse me. I'm in the Thunder Zone. I'm currently in the Thunder Zone.
Thunder Zone, yeah.
This is the Thunderdome. All of you guys have your own little red light here.
Kev, if this is like a Firefly Funhouse, you need like a Tina Turner. Happy.
We don't need another hero. Who runs Bata Town? See, you got me quoting all of the Mad Max Thunderdome stuff now. We're down there. But no, we are still charting in Cyprus. Thank you so much for helping us chart in Cyprus. And thank you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We will be back with more. We'll have a big preview coming up tomorrow of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom, or as most of you will be knowing it next week, the most attended live wrestling event of 2021 so far. It'll be an interesting thing. It is still running at Tokyo Dome. Are they going to have a whole lot of fans? We don't know. The restrictions there are getting kind of odd too. We'll talk about all that with Ross Berman, so much more. We'll get more of your questions on screen. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Really, really appreciate your support. Continue to share, like, all that good stuff. Remember, when watching wrestling, please do this most important thing, which is
mine.
Dom, it's right here. It's on the tip of my tongue. What is it, bud?
I think it's, you know what? It's Wednesday night. And you know what that means.
What does that mean?
Enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Enjoy wrestling. We'll see you.